Howdy doody, my name is Susie, and today I thought I would share with you how to make this very simple, it's a probiotic rich water or drink, and I'm using rhubarb, and it's the end of the rhubarb season. We're at the end of June. I think anything beyond June into July, your rhubarb stocks are going to be a little bit tough. Now, in order to make this drink, I'm using 12 cups of filtered water. You could use distilled water, or you can use tap water that you've just let sit out and allowed some of those chemicals to dissipate. If you let it sit out overnight, it's great. Or even if it's just a couple of hours. Again, enough stocks to cover about a quarter of the jar of with your fruit. And then you're going to add about 1 cup of sugar and the juice of a lemon. And this is going to create a really nice, bubbly, almost a mild version of a lemonade with a little bit of an exotic flavor. It's really good, very refreshing, and super easy to make. And because it is the end of the season, you've probably already made all your pies and crumbles and desserts. So maybe you're interested in doing something a little bit different and consuming the rhubarb in a different way. So I'm just going to rough chop it. Now, rhubarb is actually a vegetable, and it needs a cold winter in order for it to grow. Now, the rhubarb itself is going to be super sour. And yes, it is very sour. So you're just going to rough chop it. And the rhubarb is high in fiber, and it's got fiber. It's very low in calories. It is rich in vitamin K, and it also has some vitamin C and vitamin A, folate, and some other vitamins at a much lesser amount. So it's most notable for its vitamin K, the fiber. It is also a good source of antioxidants, much like blackberries or grapes, or some of the other dark-skinned fruits like plums, etc. So you're getting a little bit of a source of vitamin. Of course, this has been used in Chinese medicine for medicinal purposes for thousands of years, but they're using the root and they're concentrating it, so it's not the nutritional value that you're getting from the actual food or vegetable. But one word of caution, rhubarb is very high in calcium oxalate. So if you suffer from kidney stones, this is probably a food that you should avoid. The good news is that by cooking the rhubarb, you actually reduce some of that calcium oxalate between 35 and 85%. But regardless, that's something that you should definitely keep in mind if you do suffer from kidney stones. So we've got our 12 cups of water. I'm using just a little bit less than 1 cup of white sugar. So I'm actually using 1 cup of white sugar cane because I ran out of my raw granulated sugar, which actually takes up more room by volume. So I'm just using a little bit less than a cup, but like I said, it's not an exact science. And if you don't want to use the white sugar, you can use honey, or you can use maple syrup, and just mix that around. You do need a sugar source because that is what's going to feed the bacteria in order to create the fermentation process so that our drink in the end is going to be probiotic. So I am going to add, I'm just going to use 1 lemon. And this is really contributing to the flavor of the drink. And this is just a nice drink to have on hand. You're going to make a little bit more than 3 26-ounce bottles. Sometimes I find it hard to drink enough water to stay hydrated. So this is actually a nice drink. It's a good way to stay hydrated, and it's just a nice drink in the summer. Plus, it's good for your gut. So you can see, you can add more fruit or less fruit. So you just want to give that a stir. And all you're gonna do is you're gonna put this on the counter, and with just the warmth of the day, I add a coffee filter, and then I've got my lid, which is metal, so that's why I've got the coffee filter so the metal isn't coming in contact. And I'm just gonna let this sit on my counter for 3 days. Every day I'm going to come in, and this is important to avoid creating mold. I'm gonna come in and I'm just going to stir it. That'll let out some of the gases. You can also take a taste at this time. Day 4. Look at all those bubbles. I can smell it. Now that is fermented and ready to decant. And then I'm going to close it. So I'm going to do that for 3 full days. On the 4th day, I'm going to remove the fruit and I'm going to strain the drink. And at this point, you can taste it. It should be bubbly as you go along. So at the end of 3 days, you're going to filter it through a sieve and you're going to be left with your probiotic drink, and it should be bubbly. I mean, it's not bubbling. When you stir it, you'll see bubbles. So there is some gas in it. And this is what, now I made this about a week ago, and it's been sitting in the fridge. You're going to get more than 3 26-ounce bottles of the drink. And now after you decant it, you can obviously drink it at this point. You can store it in the fridge, but I have stored it in the fridge where I've used a cork. It has popped the cork because it continued to ferment in the fridge. So now I make sure I've got screw-on caps, but I don't screw it on tight. I screw it on and I leave it loose so that if there is any gas at all, it will escape. Now, if you want your drink to be more bubbly and more fermented, which it continually gets more of a funky flavor to it, then you can leave it on the counter covered for another day, but strained about the flavor, and you want more funk. And the difference is, because I've made this on day 1, I taste it, day 2 and day 3. What ends up happening is day 1, the drink is very sweet. All I can taste is the sugar. Day 2, you start to taste the rhubarb, less sugar. And then day 3, you're really just tasting the fermentation. You're not really tasting the sugar. It's a little bit sweet, but you're not tasting that sugar. And that's because the bacteria is using up the sugar as the days go on. But if you're not quite content with the flavor of at 3 days, then leave it on your counter for another day or 2 after it's been decanted with the lid on. And you're still going to open that lid every day in order to let the gas escape. Another day, another 2 days, and then taste it as you go along. It will become, the flavors will become funkier and there will be more bubbles, but it's really a matter of taste. I really like it at 3 days, so let's taste this. This isn't 3 days. This is 3 days plus 7 days in the fridge. Some of it's fizz because it's been sitting in the refrigerator for a week, but I do like the flavor. I think if I let it sit any longer, it would get a little bit too funky and then it wouldn't be as pleasurable. And I think it goes without saying that these rhubarbs here, the leaves are toxic and you should not eat them, throw them out. I just got them here as a prop. So make sure that you only are using the stalk. Also, when you're using rhubarb, make sure that you're using it in a non-reactive pan. So if you try this, I hope you like it. We'll see you next time. Enjoy! That's a good bunch.